This is a Sportsy Media production, part of Quiet Loud Studios, the podcast network where reflection meets amplification.
Welcome to NIL for You. I'm Rob Finkelstein. I'm the founder and CEO of Alumni Direct, where we created a platform for athletes to network and connect with their fellow alumni and tap into various resources in education and career areas, mental health, financial. And this podcast is all about educating on NIL. We cover stories each week. We have great guests like today, Sam Green, and just really get into not just all about the money, but about a lot of different things and how athletes can benefit from NIL. I'm always excited to have on my co-host, Trent Clark. Trent is the CEO of Leadershipity, and I love doing the show with you. Trent, how you doing today?
I am doing awesome, Rob. Always excited about another NIL for You show. And my whole career is about doubling productivity fast. Like, how do we get very efficient and very fast? So we bring on people and experts all the time. And so it is no doubt another brilliant expert today with NIL with Sam Green, only Sam Green. So we know exactly where to find you, Sam. Like, you got your own website.
Yeah, that's right.
Where else do they find you, Sam?
Instagram, X. I'm big on social media, so Sam B. Green on social media, but that's where else you'll find me.
Yeah, and the reason Sam B. Green is so big on social media is Sam is an educator to athletes throughout NIL space, and she's hired by finest universities to come in, develop creation content, and teach these athletes how to actually brand themselves in a social media market. Right now, the NIL space is about 82% branded off social media. So all agreement. So if you have no social platform, tough time getting NIL opportunities when over 4 out of 5 deals are centered around your social aspect. So that's a key ingredient there. So talk to us, Sam, a little bit about how you got into it, because one thing most people don't know about Sam B. Green is she was a honeybee, right? She was a former Charlotte Hornet dancer. She's a Charlotte girl. She grew up there, UNC Charlotte grad, and once a honeybee, always a honeybee. So, Sam, talk to us about how you got all into this gig.
Yeah, I was Honeybee Sam at a time. I danced in college and in the NBA, obviously. So I just understand what these athletes are going through and what the grind is like. And immediately in college, I saw a shift of wanting to jump into the media side of things rather than the dance side. And so you name it, I've done it within the sports and media industry, interviewing professional athletes, launching a YouTube and monetizing a YouTube channel, working for Ryan Seacrest's radio station, video editor at ESPN, director of social media, helping professional athletes land and monetize brand deals, and really well versed in it. And I just think I was always intrigued, right? Like, I always thought it was incredible, the mental fortitude that it takes athletes to make it to such a high-end level. And when I made it to that high-end level, I was burnt out, I was tired, I was done, that I was just so impressed by these athletes, like, day in and day out, like, getting out there and failing, like, publicly, when they have really little control over their bodies sometimes. Like, there's so many uncontrollables in sports, and they have to just get up and do it again. And so I was always fascinated by that piece. And then I always had like an interest in media and video editing. I was, on the morning announcements in high school, just always kind of had that side in me. But when I danced in the NBA, I got burnt out and completely deleted all my social media. Still my biggest regret, because I lost that entire fan base that was built in just from being a baby. And so I realized that it was just burnout, because I still loved, the media side. And so just kind of put all these interests together to go help athletes take advantage of that platform without burning out, and helping them kind of build something that, can bridge them post athletic career.
Well, I think the other side of this, Sam, is that you're still living this. I mean, you're still living it from all these experiences you've gained. You are directly tied into universities, helping them develop an ever-changing environment of it, right? And then also, your husband is a professional athlete, currently, rostered with the Mariners organization, and he's played in the major leagues. This guy is living it and fighting it right now. And as we've talked about, I mean, pro sports, your body is everything. When the body can't go anymore, it's over. So, man, I mean, self-care all the way through this. And part of NIL is this is a new responsibility. It's in addition to all the physical, mental aspect that you already have as an athlete on university, all the responsibility, and you're adding another layer of responsibility and dependability that's going to be required to be successful. Walk us through the challenge of that as you're seeing that and educating your clientele about how to do this really efficiently, because inefficiency will break you in this world. Is that fair?
1000%. That's really was one of my main goals because like they really don't have the time, these athletes. And like anyone that says like, oh, you make time for, what you want, like, okay, but like literally look at their schedule. It's insanity. But
Insane.
so I get frustrated for these athletes too, because I'm like, God, like I get it. Like it really is so time consuming to add anything onto your plate. But at the same time, look at literally what it could be like. And that's why I'm so careful of teaching them to prevent the burnout because it can be a lot. Step number one that I always have these athletes do, which sounds cliche, but it is the piece of efficiency that these athletes are missing otherwise, is I literally start from, like I go backwards. We start with what it is that they want to do when they graduate. And then I work all the way back down to like the ground level of like social media strategy to help them get there, because that then they wake up every day knowing what they need to do for their sport. Okay. If I'm a pitcher, I have to ice my arm, whatever, arm care, work on my mechanics, throw a bullpen, work out, my diet. Cool. But with NIL, a lot of these athletes don't know what they're creating. They don't know what kind of brands they're reaching out to. And so they wake up every day with this mountain of options and opportunities to go chase. And that's where it gets time consuming and overwhelming because they're not focused. And so like every single time I have a conversation, I use this girl as an example because it's a good one. I worked with this girl, Riley Simmons, track runner out of Memphis. Not, a huge roster spot where there's, a million eyes on her. And she wanted to get started in NIL. And I did this. I said, well, where do you want to go? Like, and she wanted to be a motivational speaker, and not one thing on her platform was in relation to that. And she thought she wasn't even going to be a motivational speaker till after college. And I'm like, no, if you're going to do it, you got to do it now while you have, a literal fan base. And so we went square one. I mean, we built out this whole strategy on social media on how she can kind of really position herself as this motivational speaker. And now that's her job in college. She's literally monetized, public speaking and brand building. So step number one really is finding that goal so that every single day, you know what content you're making and you know what brands you're reaching out to try and monetize this. And then step number two is everything that I did at ESPN as a video editor on expensive software and an 8-hour shift, I learned how to do for my phone. I literally ditched the software, solely learned how to edit on my phone, even if it was painstaking at first for like 6 months straight, just so that I could really be able to answer and teach any questions that these athletes had to make it more efficient. And now that's all I do. I only edit from my phone. So I think finding quick ways to make the content is also important. And then I think step number three is finding platforms that facilitate NIL deals, because it allows athletes to skip a lot of like cold DMing and a lot of cold outreaching. Because if you're reaching out to a random brand, they may not know the value of NIL and may not see the value in working with a creator or an influencer. But brands that are already on these NIL platforms already have experience working with athletes and already see the value in it. So you're skipping a lot of BS steps and kind of cutting straight to the chase of landing deals.
How do you bridge when you say, these platforms are it's a sea of, I have no idea how anybody finds anything on a platform, right? Like it feels like, there's 14,000 athletes on it and 8 deals to be had. I mean, obviously not everybody's taking advantage of one deal, right? So, man, when you talk about the lack of a plan, I really resonate with that because there's so much to think about, and it can be overwhelming to get that stepped out. You do events, workshops directly in that, helping athletes sit down and build that right at their university. And what's the biggest takeaway, Sam, for these athletes who have gone through your workshop?
The biggest takeaway really is like, oh, wow, I can do it. Like, when they walk in, their heads are kind of down and their eyes are kind of rolling because they just think, I'm not the 1%. It's not going to fall in my lap because I'm not the quarterback, and no one cares about me because I'm a discus thrower or whatever it is. And they walk in frustrated and they walk out confident, like, oh my God, I could do this. So I think that's really the biggest takeaway. I mean, I dumb it down, I give them a few steps to go do it, and they literally do it and it works. And it's the confidence piece that they walk out of the door with that's honestly most important.
How many?
I run them like one of two ways. We can either do it by team, which is fun because, they already know each other. I mean, I've done it with like literally 120 football players at once and walked away with 120 advertisements in an hour and a half. Or cross athletes, I typically kind of like cap it at about like 40 because they don't know each other. And so they're like a little bit more distracted. And I like to keep it super hands on where I can walk around and answer questions and kind of keep it like intimate in a sense. So it depends.
I love that. I love the fact that, for me, confidence is always prep and reps, right? And so kids have very few ideas like, hey, how do I prepare for getting this right? What do I need to do? So getting an opportunity to come with someone like you, get some education on what I need to prepare to set the framework for my success in social media, right? And then
Yep.
you give them direct reps right there in practice, just like they go to baseball practice or hockey practice or gymnastics, and they go in and they take their reps and they start building that. They walk out with a hopeful confidence that, hey, I can build this. And I think that's a huge takeaway of a Sam Green workshop. If any athlete can walk away with hope and confidence that, hey, I can create some real value here. Because, it was a long time ago when I went to school. I want to appreciate that, right? But like $1,000 a month is 12 grand. That's like real money when,
Yeah.
this is side help money to pay for books, for, travel back and forth to home. I mean, things that college isn't always going to cover everything, right?
Yep.
And, when we talk about the heavy duty schedules, social media is integrating into your schedule. A part-time job rarely integrates into your schedule.
Yeah.
So the ability to even create $10 to $25,000 in a side hustle, such as working NIL and doing some stuff where you are already in the space. Walk us through a little bit about like batching the work, efficiency, Sam, of how an athlete who's got a tremendously heavy load of, and this is what I talk about in my book here, Leading Winning Teams, right? Time management is probably one of the biggest, strongest things you learn as an athlete to take on wherever you go. Because it's, hey, you've got 18 hours of commitment a day. I do need to sleep 6, right? Like, so I do need to recharge my body. What will I do with those 18 hours? And so walk us through. I know in our NIL education, we talk a lot about batching time. Like you don't have time to go shoot all these things. How do you batch your time when you have a 2-hour slot to get a week or a month's worth of production? Walk us through that, Sam.
Well, when I sit down and I help athletes plan like their social media strategy, essentially, I always ensure that they have some form of like quick hitting, very easy type of content to reproduce to keep it consistent. Half the time I tell them it's really just like trending audios and it's like B-roll of them working out or making a protein shake. It's their day-to-day life, just a quick clip. And you tweak the text on the screen to write something that's relatable to college athletes or student athlete life. That's what's going viral right now anyway, but something that's repeatable and easy in between what I call like your actual like brandable content, which is like your day in the life or the stuff that takes like longer, to edit and to actually create. And then I always tell them literally put it in your schedule. I mean, I recommend your off day. I know it might be the last thing that you want to do, but it's the day that you have time to sit there and kind of turn your brain into like on a different side of the brain. Like during a normal day, you're worried about your sport, you're worried about literally tests and school and practice and this and that. That's one side of the brain, and like the creative side is another. So on their off days, I tell them wake up an hour earlier or whatever. And it doesn't have to be long. Like literally give yourself 30 minutes to film and 30 minutes or an hour to edit your content for the week or, for a couple weeks. But I think the key is actually mixing in that quick hitting, easy to do content, because at least it keeps your brand going and it keeps it consistent so that it kind of eases the day to day schedule of creating content.
Yeah, so good.
Want to jump into one of the stories, Trent?
Sure. Yep. When I look at the things that are coming out in Open Doors' recent report on where all the NIL money is going, everybody wants to know, oh, well, is my sport going to get any money? These are questions that are on my mind too. I want kids to get educated. I see this for the 550,000 athletes that are not, making the big dollars, who are not front and center in these major sports. We're Open Doors reported that over 72% are going to college football, right, of NIL deals. And then on a distant second is men's basketball at over 21%. So, I mean, right there, we're already at 93%. And then we go 6% for baseball and women's basketball combined. So we can see that we're like 99% of NIL is basically those four sports, only one of the females. Yet some of the biggest stories are coming out of the women's track and field, women's gymnastics. There's some really big NIL stories that have come out of different things. Now, I will say that this thing is slated to go. Last year was $917 million in spend and in NIL money and marketing. I think brands are seeing the value and as a very cost-friendly value of these college athletes that are creating good marketing content that's got good ROI on it. And they expect an uptick to $2.5 billion in 2 years. So there's going to be more money. I think if people get educated and get wise this, work and understand and start learning from a Sam Green, they're going to find out that you can have a side hustle of 8 to, I always say, hey, in the NIL education, we say any athlete, any sport, any school can make $1,000 or more a month. I mean, you can get micro deals at $250 a month and put them on a monthly recurring revenue. And for localized deals at $250 to work into brands near your campus, even if it's a Division III school, look at your program, that the advertisers that are working with your school, because a lot of brands would like to work with an athlete who actually has a social media platform. Now, where you need Sam Green is, how do I develop that platform to make me a valuable ROI, even for a micro deal? Because you don't need to play at LSU to make money. You can make money in any little small town, Fargo, South Dakota, North Dakota. I don't even know where Fargo's at. And you can make money if you've got the platform and people want to be involved and be with you. And we've seen it again and again. Sam, talk to us a little bit about what you're seeing in the numbers and the encouragement for an athlete that's not a quote unquote big star or on a big platform program.
Here's the deal. The quarterbacks, the 1%ers, they are going to make the money and it is going to fall into their lap, and it is annoying. I mean, I saw something the other day about like Armando Bacot actually came out and said how much he had made when he was at Carolina, and it was literally 2 million or something like that. So it's just going to happen. The stars are going to make that money no matter what. If you're a roster spot, it's in all honesty and in all transparency, it's just going to be a different level of work. That's going to be off the field, off the court, off the mat, whatever. You are going to have to work harder than the quarterback in the sense of producing content and providing value outside of your sport. It sucks. It's just reality. But at the same time, that quarterback that made that money, hopefully he was smart, because if he doesn't make it to the league, that's all the money he's going to make from it versus you're going to have a brand that's going to follow you if you do it right. So some of my literal track athletes, which is a revenue generating sport for these universities, are the ones making the most money. So it really, if you're not the top 1%, it comes down to work ethic.
Yeah, and I think this is really important what Sam's saying, by the way, because Sam is playing the long game, people. Like, this is a really big deal. Track and field is an international sport where athletes compete well into their 30s often. It's not uncommon. So developing their brand at a level in track and field also opens up a whole new audience for a social media player, because it's and you think about big international sports. Soccer is not the biggest university sport, but worldwide, it's a massive sport, right? And so we look at different things in the space. When we talk about one percenters, there's 580,000 college athletes. That means 5,800. There's $2.5 billion coming into this in the next 2 years, right? Go get yourself a percent of that 2.5 billion, and you're going to do fine, right? Like, you've got to find your sweet spot, and you're looking for trusted advisors like Sam Green out there that will direct you into content, to doing something very efficiently, and that you can build now and play into a long game. Sam had mentioned losing social. We had a client who lost 150,000 followers on TikTok. That was a street value for that athlete at probably $18,000 to $20,000 a year in that loss. So hard to equate what that loss and ROI could have been, and the ROI in perpetuity on someone who has that out for 5 years, who takes that 150 to a half a million and gains value in that over time too, Sam, right? So when we talk long game, you're teaching that.
Yeah, that's why I start in reverse of what is it that you want to build, because then you're not going to get tired of it, and there's not going to be like a true transition period. Like, if all you're doing is building your brand as a student athlete, that's going to end one day. And now you're starting over and you've lost that money, and good luck getting the audience to care about who you are, versus if we kind of let them know who you are, outside of an athlete while you still have your name on the roster spot, it transitions and allows you to play the long game.
Love it.
Well, one of the things that we talk about a lot, Sam, is NIL for good. And so in your conversations and your workshops, is that something that you kind of highlight with these athletes, just giving back to their communities and different causes?
Yeah, no doubt. I launched a convention called Athlete Con in 2 months, because I had been to every event that there is in the NIL industry, and they're good, but it's just talking at these athletes and not really giving them tangible advice like that. And that was like a major pain point that I had seen. A lot of these athletes want to do more, and they to use their platform for something bigger than themselves, and they really just don't know how. The same girl, Riley, that I had talked to you guys about, that became a motivational speaker, well, she also just launched her very first sports camp specifically just to give back, and get into the community and to like work with these younger kids and teach what she's learned as, a Division I athlete. So it's definitely a big part that I teach, and it's also a big desire of these athletes.
Well, I think, for most of us, we may have benefited as athletes from a nonprofit. I've done things with Fellowship of Christian Athletes, and wow, great camps, incredible resources that they have, and didn't think anything of it. And now all of a sudden you have athletes who are not only learning about business, taxes, sales, marketing, but nonprofit, foundations, benefits of a nonprofit, how to set one up, like all these things of, man, the education this behind this whole thing. And now you who've studied marketing a lot of your career, these kids are getting like 400 level marketing experience before they're sophomores, Sam. Like, walk us through what you've seen in that change in value from an education front.
Well, I think the biggest thing is before NIL, like athletes were just athletes, which was fine. But when they're graduating, they're actually behind the curve in real life because of exactly what you're saying. I mean, when my husband was drafted, like he missed out on that in college. There's no, development. There's no internships or, any like real life experience. It's just your sport. And now I think NIL opening up and providing that. I mean, these athletes are learning to pitch themselves, which will translate one day if they have to go land a job in a job interview, right? But versus before, like that wasn't a thing. It wasn't around. And so same thing with the marketing. Like before, these athletes didn't even have social media, or if they did, it was just to stalk their friends that actually have a normal life and are, out on, the beach at spring break. But now these athletes are actually diving in and learning and, creating content and, vouching for themselves and negotiation skills, learning how to fight for, the dollar and the value that they're worth. So I think that's kind of the beauty in the NIL as well, is these athletes are graduating and actually have business and real life skills.
Well, and I talk about this in my book, Leading Winning Teams, about this is hyper learning. Learning from a uh, standpoint of speaker lecture is like 5% retention. Going out and practicing and doing it, taking the functionality. I mean, you studied marketing, Sam, right? So, like, you had all this textbook knowledge coming into it, but until you actually put it into practice, you're like going, well, listen, the textbook said this would happen. And we just get ROI all crazy because I did it the way they said. And then you realize that's not exactly how it happens in the real world. You have to have a foundation set up. You have to have like a foundation for that market to grow. You have to have an audience to speak to. All these things have to be in place in order to gain that ROI. And now, I mean, I don't think I heard the term ROI till I was probably 24 years old. And now you've got 17-year-olds talking about a return on investment because my time is an investment. Where will I put that? What does this client want? They want a return on paying me $1,000 a month.
Why would you not want to hire an athlete? One, their minds, like the mental fortitude that it took to get there, right? Like only 7% of people in the entire world have played a sport at the collegiate level. Like to me, that's who I want. As it is, let alone now with to your point, with their experience in the NIL. I mean, they're actually coming in ahead of the game because they're doing it all. So one, if they've succeeded at the collegiate level and dove into NIL, they're great at time management. They're busting their asses. So you're getting somebody that has a great work ethic. They failed publicly in front of thousands and figured it out. So they're going to stick around and they're not going to flip out and hit panic when something happens in the company. They're going to stay and find a solution. And they've found a way. They're entrepreneurs now, too, because they're finding ways to make money off of their own name, image, and likeness that you put a business model in front of them to go create a return on it. I mean, shit, like it's the hardest way to find a return is through content and social media and actually providing these brands analytics just based on your own brain while you're doing a million other things. I mean, the work world ends up being easy to these athletes. Not that it is, but they're like, oh man, I don't have to wake up and study and do this. And I don't have to worry about my diet as much. And, oh my gosh, like I'm getting a paycheck. Like, why the heck would you not want to hire a collegiate athlete this day and age that has really taken advantage of NIL?
Yeah, that's great, and it's interesting. We have another podcast, and we called Athletes, Entrepreneurs, and Alumni Journey, but we talk about athletes transitioning out of sports, and it's a major issue today, and people losing their identity. They look at themselves as the baseball player, the football player, whatever. So it's interesting that you say that because we do talk about the skill set and how it parlays into that.
Love that.
Let's talk about I wanted to talk a little about kind of is there a shift from the NIL perspective with female athletes? I mean, yeah, everybody hears the Livy Dunn and Caitlin Clark and all that. Are you seeing more of a shift now for them to be involved?
Absolutely. The girls are the ones that are killing it, really. I mean, they're the ones that are building the brand. They're the ones figuring it out. Like The guys are too, of course, but the ladies are hungry. And, with viewership going up at the professional level with women's sports, which I like to really equate to, and there's more eyes than there ever has been of female sports. And so, what better time, in all honesty, for them to kind of dive in and take advantage of it?
Yeah, talk a little more about workshops. So, talk a little about the follow up. So, you do some initial workshops at the universities. What's the follow up plan for these athletes after that?
Yeah, so basically, universities can hire me a bunch of different ways. I can come in for the day and just run, some workshops for your athletes, or I'm rolling out longer term contracts where I'm actually, basically it's like Sam in your pocket, where it's like 24/7 extended, like virtual support, where I'm helping these athletes in between the times that I'm visiting on campus. And with the longer term contracts, I'm coming more often. I'm coming like 4 times a year, 2 days each day, teaching way more than just content creation. I mean, start to finish, really getting these athletes building something that's really going to outlive their playing career. So I really help my athletes a lot. Like if they text me at midnight, I roll over and I answer. It's just a big passion of mine. I will never leave them hanging. If they have questions after the workshop, I'm there for them. I really just say they always have me in their corner.
That's great.
Yeah, Sam, such an awesome conversation with you. I mean, and such a experienced person in the market that people can take advantage of. When people are looking for help in NIL, what do you recommend to the parents, to the athletes themselves? One of the challenges in NIL is athletes don't have any money to pay for help,
Yep.
right? So they need help from the university, or in our case, parents get involved in paying for that education usually before they become a college athlete in their teen years, right? So, what do you recommend that they look for when they're looking for good advisory services, best knowledge of where I can go and how I can be smart about what I'm doing here once they go looking for an agent, a marketer, anything they want in the market?
Think that actually the true experts within the field are the ones that have other business models that aren't profiting off of the college athlete. In all honesty, like I'm going to charge a school, I will never really charge my college athletes. I mean, I have a $4.99 a month Instagram subscription that you can join where you get, complete and total access. But that's as much as I'm charging my athletes, $4.99 a month. So I think when you're
That's
actually
$4.99 or $500.
$4.99,
That's
basically
great.
free 99, to access me 24/7. But I think that don't assume like a one-stop shop. Like I would really tell everybody to truly do their homework. Like if you write out almost like a pie of all these things that you're looking for, or that, NIL requires. So social media, finance, X, Y, and Z. If you really like build out that puzzle, oftentimes you'll find experts in each little division and you can build out an entire team. And a lot of the people that are at that level are like me, where they're making their money from different places that they're actually willing to help out and willing to not charge, in a sense. I mean, of course, time is money at the end of the day. And I'm not saying everybody's going to be free, but you would be surprised how many resources there are of people within this industry that truly just want to help. So I would say reach out to me. Once you find one person, ask about their network and who they know. Like I promise you, I know the best lawyers in the NIL space just because I've been around. Even though I specialize in content, I know the other people in this industry, and I help athletes build out their team because of the connections that I have. So it is hard. I just did a video on it. It kind of went viral on Twitter or X because it's the truth of like athletes have a hard time finding resources in this space because there's so many people that are jumping in to try and make a buck off of them. And to me, that's a part of it. Of course, you're going to have to pay. I don't want to say it's like a major red flag, but there's other options out there. Like you shouldn't be going to the people that are only there to make money off of you. Yeah, I mean, hello, universities, hire me because I come in with brand deals like Marriott for your athletes. I mean, Michigan State is very innovative and the guy that's really overseeing their NIL over there, Darian Harris, was a big part of actually my Marriott sponsorship. But schools that get it and see it, and somebody like Darian sees value in creative partnerships outside of like your traditional like product or brand deals, are helping these athletes with deals like that. I mean, when I went in, the Marriott sponsored me, and then in return for my workshop, so I had all the athletes go teach them how to make advertisements for the Marriott there in person. The athletes literally got 3 free nights for their parents to fly in from out of town to come see them for the season. So a big part of NIL is practical deals that will save athletes money in creative ways.
Yeah. And so you're basically, are you helping to bring in these different brands too?
I when a school partners with me, I bring in NIL deals or able to go through your corporate sponsorships too. So if you're with a Learfield or like a Playfly, I can also kind of work with them on appeasing basically one of your corporate sponsors to provide an NIL deal as well. So it's pretty flexible.
Okay. And I mean, you seem like you're doing a lot of great things. So have you cloned yourself, or do you have other people that work with you as well?
I'm actually in the process of that right now. I'm kind of in the process of franchising my curriculum and going to be training up people, which I'm pretty excited about. The first girl that I'm going to be training in, I can't really say her name, but let's just say her sister is very successful in this space. I'm so excited to start building that out because, yeah, it's getting there, especially with the convention athlete con that I run now. It's getting to the point where I am going to have to start thinking about that.
Okay.
Yeah, scalability is always a challenge, right? Scalability is becoming an increased challenge for not only the athletes, but the NIL companies that are helping them, because there is a staggering amount of clients. And how can we automate the content? I mean, this is our online content lives 24/7, which is great that I don't have to go and do a workshop every hour, because you could fill it with continuing education. And I mean, Sam, as your brand keeps growing, same thing. There's only, how many days a year that you could go out there, and if you're going to hit Road Warrior and be on every university campus, how would you do it in under 175 days of a school year to make that happen, right? So
No doubt.
major challenges of scalability and sustainability, and so building teams is what we're good at. Like, it's what we know.
Yeah.
We've known it in sport, we've known it in other organizations, so we got to do it in our brands.
Yep.
And
exactly.
And let's wrap up real quick. You just because you mentioned a couple of times Athlete Con. So when is that? And talk a little bit about that.
Yes. So I just ran it June 1st. I flew in 60 Division I athletes, and I had over 25 brands there. And it was the first convention to actually educate these athletes as content creators. So I had Meta, I had Snapchat, I had TikTok, I had LinkedIn, all come and actually teach athletes hands-on workshops about content creation and building their brands. And then it was also the first the first convention to facilitate NIL deals between brands and athletes in person. So these these athletes got to go meet the brands and actually create content advertisements, and won NIL deals at a pink turf suits and sneakers awards night that I hosted that night, where the brands were able to actually give away like big cash NIL deals to their favorite creators. So it will be the first weekend of June next year. It is going to be 2 days already because this year was such a hit that I actually had athletes begging me for more and that they didn't want to leave, which was shocking. So it's going to be June 6th and 7th. It's the first Friday, Saturday of June next year.
Great. Yeah, definitely have to look out for that one, everybody. You want to hit Athlete Con. So, and that's in the Charlotte area there?
Charlotte, yep.
You're not going far from home. I love it, Sam.
Got to bring everybody to the QC. Everything that I hear, everyone's always like, "Oh, I want to come to Charlotte. I want to come to Charlotte." So I'm like, "All right, I'll give you a reason to." So gotta
What
keep
do
it
they
here.
call it? The QC?
Queen City.
Oh, the Queen City.
704. Yep.
Nice. Got it.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah, Charlotte is booming right now. And I was recently there in the spring, and I was super impressed with the growth. I mean, North Charlotte's like taking on a whole new world. So yeah, fun to see everything that's going on. And Sam, so thankful you could take the time to be with us, learn a little bit about content. Let's finish with this, Sam. If you could give these athletes some content creation advice, foundational stuff to, let's just say, two things. One, really create valuable content that will be seen. And then two, growing their network with their content. What are the two things you'd recommend them do as foundational?
Growing your network would be two-part. Number one, tap into the algorithm content that's going to push your brand out there. So it's just the trending audios that I mentioned before and tweaking your text on the screen to relate to life as a student athlete. It's what's going viral. It's what's going to grow your following. But at the same time, the people that you're going to want to network with are the ones that are adults and actually have the money. LinkedIn, every single head of influencer marketing is sitting on LinkedIn, and no athletes are actually reposting their content onto LinkedIn. If you land a brand deal, create a day in the life or create some piece of content that is actually of value to the brand. Go on to ChatGPT, make sure your spelling's correct, but write out a little blurb about what it was like to work with that brand and a blurb about, that you're open to work with other brands. Throw it up on LinkedIn and actually throw it on X. I was gung-ho about Instagram, and it was the only platform I was preaching about. And most recently, I've been going viral on X, and it's all the right people that are actually on the platform to hire me like athletic directors. So X and LinkedIn are slept on by athletes. Get into the algorithm to grow your following, and don't be afraid to repurpose it and reach out to people on those platforms. And I think I maybe forgot the other part of your question.
Yeah, that was really good. Really good stuff. I mean, LinkedIn is like a forgotten for kids. And as we know, as a career-minded people in business happens on LinkedIn. So, and the people that are all making business happen are on LinkedIn. So you can't miss them, right? So you got to be there. It's the one thing that I really didn't recognize coming through the recruiting process after social media, or I was before social media in that way. X is the social media brand for sports and athletic departments. They started a long time ago. Twitter just led the market in messaging, and from ADs to their staff, they're using it as an internal communication and then an external communication to all athletes and recruits. So if you miss X, and I get it that Instagram is where my buddies are and TikTok is where a bunch of entertainment's at, but if there are no buyers, you are not in business, you just have a hobby. So
Right.
we got to put it together on how this gets done in a monetization way, as Sam Green would say.
Yep. Spot on.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Yeah, no, thanks for being on. And again, NIL with Sam Green. You can find us on sportepreneur.com, which is actually based out of Charlotte. They've got a platform with a bunch of different podcasts and across different podcast networks. But again, look out for NIL for you each week. Sam, thank you so much. Trent, as always, it's been great.
Yep.
Yeah, a little shout out. Yep, thanks, Sam Green, and a special shout out to Sam Green, one of Sam Green and our partners, which is NIL Now, the chatbot. Big oncoming brand there. You can find them at nil-ai.com. They are a big partner of ours and also work with Sam. In fact, facilitated bringing Sam on today, which is a big deal for us. And we're thrilled to even get the chance and get an hour of Sam's time. As you can imagine, she is busy. That's what honeybees are. They're busy. So, Sam Green, way to go. You rock it.
Appreciate y'all.
Thank you.
Unlock the full potential with your business with Leadershipity. Our proven strategies have fueled growth for countless organizations. Ready to elevate your leadership and scale your success? Book your free 15-minute consultation now. Click the link in the show notes below and let's make your business soar.